but it is what it is. We accomplished the goal, and that's the good part. Now we're kind of on easy street. There are a couple of things that I've got to do that are mandatory, but not taxing, not time sensitive. So I can kind of navigate whatever the budget is to make sure that we're able to tackle that. So I think that everything worked out well. But I appreciate the compliment. Thank you very much. Now, the amazing career of the perfect family, the buzzing social life, and the fit body with the Zen mind, all neatly packaged for our feeds, where we see it everywhere. And we're told time and time again that this is the goal. But what if the hard data from decades of research tells us that chasing this image isn't just a fantasy, but a direct route to being profoundly unhappy? Now, what if the numbers show that the ideal itself creates a pressure cooker of stress and anxiety? For years, we've been sold a story of empowerment and a story that says you can and you should do everything all at once. But the research tells a different story. It's a story of trade offs and sacrifices that curated perfection of our digital world ignores. The things that the worst parts of life that we leave off of social media, that is the other half of the seemingly perfect world. Today, we're not talking about opinions. We're not here to judge anyone's choices. We are here to look at the evidence, at the data backing the truth behind this myth. So, we're going to explore what the research says about the crash between career and family, the surprising data on parenthood and happiness, and the one thing that, above all others, consistently predicts a life well lived. The truth is way more complex and, frankly, more interesting than the myth. And it might just hold the key to a genuinely fulfilling life, one that isn't about having it all, but about having what truly matters. Now, let's start with a core belief of having it all dream, that adding more big roles to your life, a successful career on top of a happy family, should add to your happiness. More is more, right? Success plus love should equal double joy. Sounds perfectly logical, but according to the research, it also largely is untrue, especially for women. Studies show that for women trying to juggle careers and families, happiness is one area. It just doesn't add up. And one level of happiness doesn't mesh with the other level of happiness. Instead, they often feel satisfied with either their work or their family, but rarely both at the same time. In fact, research shows that women in this position often spend more of their time feeling stressed, tired, unhappy, or compared to their stay at home peers. Now, the dream, it seems, comes with a hidden cost, a double burden that the glossy photos never show. This isn't meant to be discouraging. It's meant to ground us in reality because you can't start to solve a problem until you understand what it really looks like. Now, the idea of having it all started as a call for female empowerment. But somewhere along the line, the way that choice became an expectation and the expectation became a crushing weight, that's not something anyone ever expected. To really get how we got here, we have to go back to 1982 when Helen Grulley Brown's book, Having It All, hit the scene. Now, at the time, it was a revolutionary idea, a feminist rallying cry that told women they could be ambitious outside the home, which they can. It was about love, success, and money, which can occur, but takes a lot of work. And it was about having choices that broke free from the rigid roles that had boxed in women for generations. But the 4 decades since, that meaning has twisted. Funny enough, the original book barely mentioned children. Today, the concept is almost entirely about combining a high powered career with a picture perfect family. What started as an inspiration has turned into a penalty, a standard that now mostly is used against working mothers. And this isn't a man from the man's perspective taking shots at women because this is a woman that wrote a book with a philosophy that was supposed to empower women to detach themselves from the traditional norms of being stay at home wives and get out there and go be career women instead. And the model that was written in that book has now been transformed into being a career mom, a Fortune 500 career slash mom. Doesn't work out. Standards that now are extremely used against the previously promoted working mother. Now, you almost never hear a man being asked if he can have it all. The question itself reveals a deep seated bias. It assumes that a man's career is given, while a woman's is an extra, something to be balanced against her real job as a caregiver. And that sets up an impossible dynamic right from the start. And social media has thrown this whole situation into overdrive over feeds that are a constant stream of highlight reels where we see the promotions, the family trip to Bali, the marathon finish line, the perfectly plated organic dinner. We don't see the strained budget, the sleepless nights, the arguments behind the scenes, or the guilt of missing a school play for a work deadline. We're constantly comparing our messy, complicated reality with everyone else's perfectly edited performance. And this isn't just harmless distraction, it messes with our heads because it creates a culture of competitive parenting and performative success. The pressure is suffocating. We're left with this constant nagging feeling that we're failing to measure up to an imaginary standard that nobody actually is meeting. The myth of having it all ignores the most basic law of life, which is trade offs that truly exist. I've spoken to people plenty of times about the laws of alchemy that you must give in order to receive. What is it? Einstein, matter cannot be created or destroyed. So it can only transition from one phase to the next. It always was there. It just had to manifest itself into something you could see, but it was always there. When you start applying that into relationships, the affair with a specific colleague was bound to happen because the chemistry was always there. You couldn't see it, but it was always there. All it took was a transition to manifest it. Life is an endless series of choices with limited time, energy, and money. To pretend otherwise is to set yourself up for failure. The promise of having it all is a fantasy of a life without sacrifice, where you can have the best of everything all at once. But the data and our own lives tell us that's impossible. The question was never if we can have it all. The real question has always been what are we willing to trade for it? And what are the hidden costs of pretending that we don't have to choose? This is where the data gets really interesting. Starting at the main battlegrounds for this myth, the intersection of work and family. One of the clearest findings in work life research is the double burden. The term for how women, even when they work full time, still take on the lion's share of housework and childcare. These women is breaking their backs and breaking their necks on the job, and then they come back to the house and they still got the chillings under control. House is clean, food on the table. The man came back to the house and he complaining about the fact that she complaining about the kid. But they both got a job. She's just got two. Because taking care of the house and taking care of the kids is a job in and of itself. The concept that has been talked about, we talked about this on the show, and a lot of women get pissed off when we talk about it, is that um, when women's liberation was happening, all of the men were going off to war, and not all of the men were coming back. Back when women were not in the army, and the women that were still here in the United States were the reinforcements. So the women who were making the weapons that we were using in the war, those women had to leave from their houses, go out and work so that they could sustain themselves. Because if they did not have a job, they would not have a standard of living because their husband would not come back from battle. Women's liberation was liberating women back in the day from the restriction of only being at the house so that they can go and sustain themselves until their man comes back, if he ever comes back. Now, when I say this, women get pissed off, but that was the original model and it's been twisted. Now, the women are so moved to independence that they would prefer to be alone and somewhat struggling towards success than to be happy in a relationship with a partner that is working towards their success. Misguided that some kind of way that it's man shaming, or not man shaming, it's the man shaming her, or in some kind of way oppressing her if the man took over certain roles and certain duties, which alleviated some of the stress off of her plate. But the fact is that the statistics still show that even if a man steps in and does takes 41% of her responsibilities off of her plate, when you add kids to the fold, she's taking on extra responsibilities because she's still doing something with the career and stuff at the house. Yeah, special shout out to the ladies. This isn't some black and white TV trope. It's a stubborn reality that shapes the daily lives of millions. Now, while the world has changed to give women more choices, it hasn't dismantled the deep seated gender norms that still rule the households. The result is that many women work their paid jobs and then come home to a second shift where they're taking care of the families, even though statistics show that the logic and reason from men is probably a little bit more beneficial for the children. The fact is that more often than not, the women are the one with the children, not the men, which is one of the main reasons why 82% of men never end up with the children when separation occurs, because society still believes that the women should have the children, even though the men might could do a more efficient job in some areas. Not saying that men are better than women 100% of the time. The fact is that the other half that the children need, which is logic and reason, come from the men. The nurturing, the caring, and the kindness can come from the woman, but the logic and reason comes from the men. Women think emotionally. Men think logically. I'm not saying that women aren't logical or rational, but a woman is driven by her feelings. Men are driven by hormones. And when that's not happening, they're driven by what makes sense. And this is where that additive of happiness idea just falls apart because research shows that women with careers and families don't just get a simple work plus family boost in happiness. The stress of juggling these two massive roles can turn well being into a zero sum game. Because, yeah, you're happy about your job, but you're stressed out about it. You're tired. You're burnt out. Yeah, you're happy about your family. But again, you're tired. You're burnt out. When you're off from work, you're with the family. When you're off from the family, you're at work. When are you truly off? So they might feel great about work, but that feeling comes at a cost of being overwhelmed at home or the other way around. This emotional seesaw is a direct result of the double burden. Studies consistently find this juggling act takes a real toll, with working mothers reporting higher levels of anxiety and guilt about all the hats that they have to wear. They're haunted by the feeling of never having enough time, a major source of stress that's less common for the other groups. Think about it. This isn't to say stay at home moms are living stress free. That's not the case. Their challenges are just different, often revolving around loneliness and lack of intellectual challenges, or feeling like their world is shrinking, especially since from the time you wake up to the time that you go to bed, you're stuck in this box that you call a house. And the only thing that you do is clean it 5 or 7 times a day behind however many kids in there that's tearing it up after you just cleaned it. And then just as soon as you get the kids to stop tearing it up, then the husband come in there from work and he didn't tow it up, didn't even come in and enjoy the cleanliness for an hour before he tore it up. He just tore it up on his way in. The I keep telling you fellas, y'all gotta validate these women. When you take your ass home from work, first thing you need to do is, honey, I'm home, hug and kiss, and compliment how good the house look. It is clean, it is spotless. Wow, I can see my face in this table. You got to really point out because she put some effort into that shit. And you just didn't know it because you was at work riding around in your Amazon truck like you a boss. So you got to really go back and show the women that they are important for the effort that they do at the house. Because I did say, and I've always said this, that even if she doesn't have a money making job, she has a job if she's taking care of the house and she's taking care of the family. Contributions doesn't always mean putting money in. Contributions sometimes can be putting in effort. Now, this is complex. For example, one study during the COVID-19 pandemic found stay at home mothers reported higher levels of stress than working mothers, maybe because work provided some structure and social connections. Yet, other studies find working mothers have more anxiety because of the conflict between their roles. Now, the difference between working mothers and stay-at-home mothers is that the stress of repetitive behavior never reaching a goal, because just like I told you, consistently cleaning the house and just as sure as you're done somebody to tore up the house again, you're going to feel defeated. Going to work, you're able to detach yourself from things that happens at the house, which gives you a new environment. That's going to be less stress in and of itself. Being able to socialize with your colleagues and the customers and the clients and whatever, that is a sense of relief as well. But like I said, the roles, whatever you're supposed to be knocking back at the house is not being taken care of because you're at work and he's at work and he's not picking up your slack, and that falls on you. And it shouldn't actually be your slack, but really in a relationship, usually one or the other, doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, is going to do more of something than the other person. And likewise, the other person is going to do more of something else than the first person. It's never 50-50. And I've always argued against 50-50 because people think that you can just split it in the middle like a chainsaw from Medea's family reunion, and you can't. You can't. Symbiotic relationship means that when you need it, you're getting what you need out of the situation. And when the other person needs, they get what they need out of the situation. It is not weighted equally. One person is going to be putting in capital gains and the other one is going to be putting in effort. The person that's putting in effort is going to want to see more effort from the person putting in capital gains, and the person putting in capital gains is going to want to see more capital gains put in from the person that's putting in effort. It's not the same. You might see a 60-40-70-30 trade off, but then you're also going to double back and see another person doing 70% of one thing and 20% of something else. And it's still going to bring balance if there was a network of teamwork involved in that relationship. But the data is messy. And the main takeaway is that neither path is easy. There's no simple option. And maybe the most damaging part of this is the motherhood penalty, because this refers to the systemic disadvantages women with children face at work. Because research shows that they often earn less and get promoted slower than childless women and men. And this penalty hits the most educated women the hardest, as they have the most to lose in their career by taking time off or cutting back hours. And they ease off the gas pedal to care for their family. And when they try to speed back up, they find they've lost their critical ground. This creates a crucial feedback loop. Women are told to be ambitious, but the system at work and at home penalize them for having kids. Now, while policies changes in a few countries outside of the United States, we've come to see that this has begun to slightly lessen these effects as time goes on, where the pressure in most places remains immense, and it leads many high achieving women to a painful choice, which, as I've explained to you, I've covered a couple of places like Bangladesh and Kazakhstan, where it was a primarily female workforce, still patriarchal societies, but the women were bringing home the bacon. Some of these career women remain childless, not because they want to, but because the system has made it nearly impossible to combine motherhood with their career goals. They look at the demand, the lack of support, the timing, and realize something has to give. The myth of having it all crumbles when faced with these realities, and it becomes clear that this isn't about one person's failure. It's about a system that's still built for a world where one partner handles the career and the other handles the home. Until those big issues where workplace culture, childcare costs, paid leave, and who's expected to do all the dishes are truly addressed, the double burden will keep weighing on working women, making the dream of having it all a source of stress, not joy. Now we need to talk about something that feels almost taboo. It's the idea that having children, one of life's most meaningful experiences, can also make you unhappy. Now, this is the parenthood paradox, and the data on it is consistent and clear. For decades, study after study has found that parents, on average, report being less happy, less satisfied with their marriages, and have worse mental health than people without kids. I got to tell you, I was stuck in a situation today where this child just would not shut up. And I'm sitting over here looking, and nobody said anything. It was an awkward situation. The dude tried to quiet the child down, it didn't work for long. Mom was embarrassed. She couldn't quiet the child down. And normally, what a parent would do is tell the child to shut up before you give them something to cry about, and then the child will sop that stuff up. But in public, that's considered child abuse. So now you got to sit there and just listen to the child wail until the child gets tired of crying, while everybody else in the area is uncomfortably disturbed. That level of frustration is not one of the best parts of parenthood, but it comes with the territory. The best parts of parenthood is the school play, the science project, the field trips, their first steps, their first words, the first time they say mommy or daddy, the first time they come and give you a hug, the first time they choose you before you choose them. Some of the best parts of being parents is when they choose you as an adult, when they prioritize you, when they become adults. No matter what they got going on in their life, they make it a point to prioritize you. Those are the better parts. You say that all the hell and damnation that you went through raising a child was worth it because in this moment, the fruits of your efforts is showing. But you got to understand that there is a lot of sleepless nights pacing up and down the street with a child that won't shut up at 4 in the morning, diaper changes, stomach issues, diaper rash, sicknesses, doctor visits, medical expenses, medication, clothes never fit because the child grows too fast, money not coming in fast enough because you got to keep something on the kid. Education costs are too much. All of this stuff is parts of the parenthood that don't nobody talk about. Yeah, that baby is cute, but when you look at the bill for that little thing, I don't know. So let's be crystal clear about what this means. It doesn't mean parents don't love their children. It doesn't mean parenting isn't rewarding in the long run. What it means is that on a day to day basis, the years with the young kids at home are incredibly hard. The noise, the chaos, the constant needs, the financial strain, and the pure exhaustion takes a real hit on personal and marital happiness. Both men and women feel this happiness dip, but the data shows that mothers often get the worst of it, experiencing a bigger happiness penalty. You're going to have to think about the fact that there are a lot of women that deal with the breastfeeding side of things and they stick to it, and that's going to be a huge um, hit because she's going to be with the child for the first 3 years more than the father. Then the father gets the easy side of things. When a kid starts walking and talking and being self-sustainable, it's good. Say, come on, little buddy, let's go fishing, right? But when little buddy couldn't walk or talk or do anything other than throw up on your clothes, that wasn't what you was talking about. And this penalty isn't a universal human thing. It's specifically addressed to certain cultures. And a fascinating study compared 22 industrialized countries and found that the size of this happiness gap changes dramatically from place to place. And the number one reason for the difference is what? Social policy. In countries with generous family policies like cheap childcare, paid parental leave, the guaranteed sick days, the happiness gap between parents and non parents shrinks or even disappears completely. In places like Norway and Hungary, I don't think we've covered Norway, but I do believe we've covered Hungary before. Parents are actually happier than non parents. So, where does the United States fall in this comparison? According to this major study, whose most recent comparative data comes from the mid 2010s to early 2020s. So it's a little about 5 years old, but it's still relevant for what we're talking about. It has the largest happiness gap for parents out of all the 22 countries in the survey. Now, the researchers concluded that the negative hit to happiness from parenting in the United States was almost entirely explained by the lack of policies that helped parents combine work and family. Basically, because of our capitalism, American parents are left to handle the huge stress and cost of raising kids on their own, and their happiness pays the price. Remember, I told you a while back, all last year and part of this year, Asia has been doing a campaign to promote the population growth. So they have been offering subsidies to families that are producing children, regardless of their income status. Like in the United States, you have to be poor, extremely poor, to receive government funds. But in other countries, you just have to have the child in that country and be a native. One of y'all be the native. Mom can be the native and the child can be native born, or dad can be the native and the child be native born, and that's it. That's it. And the family structure itself also plays a huge part. The happiness penalty is worst for single and unmarried parents. Unmarried mothers specifically report the lowest happiness levels of any group. This just highlights how important a stable, supportive partner is in buffering the incredibly stressful and tough area of parenting. Raising kids is supposed to be a team sport. And when you have to do it alone, the difficulty skyrockets. Even the number of kids you have can have a surprising effect, especially for moms. You might think the stress just goes up with each kid, but some research suggests the opposite. One study found that happiness penalty for women was almost entirely driven by moms with small families. Women with only one child were a shocking 7% less likely to say they were very happy compared to childless women. With two kids, the gap was smaller, closer to 4%. But for women with three or more kids, there was no real difference in happiness compared to their childless peers. Why do you think that was? The reasons aren't totally clear. Maybe women who chose larger families are just different from the start. Or maybe a bigger family creates its own kind of support system because the older kids chip in with the younger kids. So the burden is now spread out amongst the family instead of all on one person. What is clear is that becoming a parent, especially that initial shock, is a huge challenge to your well being. And this data forces us to focus and face a thought and very tough truth. Now, in a society that offers little support, the beautiful journey of parenthood often comes at a direct cost of personal happiness. So, after seeing the challenges of work, family, and happiness penalties of parenthood, the data points us towards one of the most powerful predictors of human happiness, which is marriage. While modern culture sometimes questions if it's still relevant, the science and the scientific evidence is overwhelmingly clear. On average, married people are significantly happier, healthier, and more financially stable than their unmarried peers. This isn't just a short lived honeymoon effect. Long term studies that follow people for decades show that well being benefits of marriage last deep in old age. Researchers have even found that marriage seems to act as a shield against the well known midlife crisis dip in happiness. While single people often see a deep U shape in their happiness over their lives, married people experience a much smaller dip, suggesting that the companionship of a spouse helps them navigate the stress of middle age. The numbers from big social surveys are pretty amazing. Data from the US General Social Survey shows that married parents are the happiest demographic group. A huge 40% of married women with children say they are very happy with their lives. For married men with children, it's about 35%. Now, compare that to their single peers. Only 22% of unmarried women with no kids say they are very happy. And for single mothers, that number drops to 17%. The trend is the same for men, with single fathers being at the least happiest of them all. And a lot of us think money or a great career is the key to a good life, but the research keeps pointing back at our social connections. So we are social animals, and having these deep, caring relationships is what gives life meaning and makes us happy. Now, some skeptics argue this is just selection, that happier people are just more likely to get married in the first place. And while there's some truth to that, studies that account for premarital happiness still find that marriage itself causes a significant boost in the well being. So, why is marriage so good for us? The research points to a few key things. First, the practical economic benefits. Married couples share costs for housing, food, bills, which frees up money to build wealth, which is what I've been promoting on this show for the longest period of time. And the average household income for married mothers is much higher than for single moms. This financial security gets rid of a huge source of stress. But the benefits are more than just financial. The real power of marriage is in the social and emotional support. A spouse is a built in best friend, a partner to share life's burden and celebrate its wins with. The Harvard study of adult development, as one of the largest studies on happiness ever, found that the quality of people's close relationships was the single best predictor of their long term health and happiness. So, more than social class, IQ, or even their genes. This is leading to a growing happiness divide in society. As marriage rates go down, especially among lower income groups, the happiness gap between married and unmarried people get wider. This isn't just a personal issue, it's a societal one, creating two different tracks for well-being. The data paints a picture that clashes with the culture that often treats marriage like an outdated chore or a cage for personal freedom. The evidence says the opposite. A stable, supportive marriage is one of the greatest sources of freedom, freedom from loneliness, from serious financial stress, and from facing life's challenges all by yourself. I'm going to say that again, ladies. I want y'all to listen to me. A stable, supportive marriage is one of the greatest sources of freedom, freedom from loneliness, freedom from serious financial stress, and from facing life's challenges all by yourself. Now, we've just gone through some pretty heavy and maybe surprising data, and we're halfway through this. Had we started this show on time today, we would have had a whole lot of stuff to cover. We've seen how the have it all idea can create a double burden, how parenthood comes with a happiness penalty in unsupported societies, and how marriage stands out as a huge pillar of well being. It might feel a little discouraging, especially if the life you have or the life you want seems to clash with these findings. But the story doesn't end here. The data doesn't just point out problems, it also points towards solutions. Because here on this and that, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between, we don't find a problem that we can't fix. There is always another way. So the second half of the show is all about the real evidence based strategies for building a genuinely fulfilling life, a life that might not look like the social media version of having it all, but one that's built on real well being. So, if you're finding this data driven approach useful, take a second to like and subscribe. Share this to somebody that you know. Hit that notification bell because we're committed to exploring these big topics with the depth that they deserve. Okay, now that we understand the challenges, let's turn to the data on what we can actually do about it. Let's get into the solutions now. If there's one single idea that runs through almost all research on human happiness, is it this? The quality of our social connections is so much more important than the quantity. This one finding is the perfect antidote to the have it all mindset, which pushes us to frantically checking boxes. Get the job, check. Find the partner, check. Have the kid, check. Maintain a huge social circle, check. And post it all online, triple check. The data says this is a bad strategy. A life full of shallow connections is a poor life. Real well being is found in depth, not in numbers. The Harvard study is probably the best proof of this. For over 80 years, it has tracked the lives of its participants, and its main conclusion is crystal clear. Close relationships, more than money or fame, are what keep people happy and healthy in their entire lives. These strong bonds protect people from life's problems, help delay mental and physical decline, and are better predictors of a long and happy life than social class, IQ, or even genetics. Again, the researchers have found that how satisfied someone was with their relationships at age 50 was better predictors of their physical health at age 80 than their cholesterol level were. The message couldn't be clearer. It's not about how many people you know, it's about having people you can truly deeply count on. This idea applies with special force to our most intimate relationships, our marriage or romantic partnership. We already know married people are happier on average, but the research lets us go even deeper. The biggest happiness boost from marriage goes to those who say their spouse is also their best friend. A study in the Journal of Happiness Studies found that the life satisfaction bump from marriage was about twice as large for people who also saw their partner as their best friend, which is how things used to be back in the 60s and 70s. This just makes sense. A best friend is someone you trust, respect, and genuinely love spending time with. When your life partner is also your best friend, the relationship becomes a constant source of support and positivity, a safe harbor in a storm. The famous relationship researcher John Gottman even put a number on this idea of quality with his magic ratio. After watching couples for decades, he found he could predict with cozy accuracy who would stay together and who would divorce based on one simple thing: the ratio of positive to negative interactions. Now, if that ain't crazy, I didn't know what was. But happy, stable couples had at least five positive moments: a compliment, a hug, a shared laugh, a thank you. for every one negative moment during a fight. This magic ratio is the real measure of a relationship quality. And that is what I told y'all a long time ago. I said, ladies, for every time you find fault in your man's behavior, patterns, actions, or decision making, go back and find between 5 and 25 positive things that you can do, address, and identify to make up for that. Now, the research says that that is how those relationships last. And I told you that before I'd done the research. Now, it shows that a healthy partnership isn't one without conflict. The conflict is going to be there, but one where the bank account of good feelings is so full that it can easily handle the occasional withdrawals. Building that bank account is active work. It takes being intentional, talking to each other, and committing to nurturing the friendship at the heart of the romance. This focus on quality over quantity is a complete reversal of the have it all checklist. It suggests that our main job in life shouldn't be collecting different types of relationships, but to invest deeply in a few that matter the most. While partners and family usually get all the attention in our conversations about happiness, the research points to an unsurged hero, and that is just as vital for our well being. Now, the lack of identification of this individual is true irony. Our friendships, the platonic friendships, are the heroes of legends that no one speak about. In a culture that often puts romantic love in a on a pedestal, we tend to push friendship to the side. We see it as a nice to have, something to fix, and also something to squeeze in after work, and families are taken care of. The data says this is a huge mistake. Only showing up like it's a pet rock and giving it a little bit of attention or bleeding a little bit of attention from it in your spare time. That's not good. A growing pile of research shows that stable, healthy friendships are essential for our well being and how long we live. People with close friendships are more satisfied with their lives, are less likely to be depressed, and even have a lower risk of dying from a bunch of diseases. In fact, that same long term Harvard study found that strong relationships with friends and the community were just as important for a flourishing life as family ties were. As we get older, friendship actually seems to become even more important, sometimes becoming a bigger factor in our day to day happiness than our relationships with our family. So, why are friends so powerful? For one, friendships are often our main source of fun, low stress interactions. Family relationships, while incredibly meaningful, can be loaded with obligations and complicated history. Friendships, on the other hand, are relationships of choice, where we are friends with people because we actually enjoy being around them. These interactions give us a direct, simple boost to our mood. For example, fighting with your spouse can trigger unhealthy stress hormones, but studies show that this damage is lessened when people feel they have a good social support from friends outside the marriage. Friends are a critical support system, a release valve for the pressure that builds up everywhere else. And the research makes a really interesting distinction between strong ties and weak ties. Strong ties are our close friends, the people we tell everything to. Weak ties are our acquaintances, the friendly barista, the person from another department, the neighbor you chat with from time to time. Research by social psychologist Gillian Sandstorm has found that people who have more of these weak ties interactions are happier and feel a greater sense of belonging. These small, seemingly random moments of positive connection add up, giving a real boost to our overall happiness. This has huge implications for how we should live our lives. It means that nurturing our friendships isn't a luxury, it's a critical part of a healthy life, just as important as a diet and exercise. It means we have to be intentional about making time for friends, even when life is crazy. It means the effort it takes to keep these bonds strong is one of the best investments we can make in our future happiness. The have it all myth sort of implies that once you have a partner and kids, your social needs are met. The data tells us this is dangerously wrong. We are social creatures who need a diverse portfolio of relationships to really thrive. A loving partner, a supportive family, and a tribe of good friends aren't interchangeable. They're all essential and different pillars of a good life. Neglecting our friendships to chase careers and family isn't a shortcut to happiness, it's a direct path to loneliness, which the Harvard study calls a poison as powerful as smoking or alcoholism. So we know that our partnerships and our friendships are both critical pillars of our happiness. But knowing this and actually managing it are two different things. How do you judge or juggle the deep demands of a romantic relationship, the essential connections of family, and the vital support of friendships when you barely have time to sleep? Shit, I got 3 hours left. This is where we need a practical guide for mastering the art of balancing these relationships without sacrificing your happiness or your sanity. The key isn't to add more hours to the day, but to get smarter about how we invest the social energy we have. The first principle is to abandon the idea of rigid, separate boxes for each relationship. Instead of work life balance, we talk about integration. The same applies here in relationship integration. Rather than feeling the constant pull between seeing your partner or seeing your friends, find ways to blend these worlds together. This could mean hosting a casual dinner with both your partner and a few close friends, or turning a family outing into a chance to invite a friend and their kids along. This approach isn't about forcing everyone to be best friends. It's about creating opportunities for positive, shared experiences that reduce the feeling of being torn in different directions. It allows you to nurture multiple bonds at work. Having friends at work allows you to spend time with your friends while working. Even though HR would vote against it, having relationships at work until the relationships go south is a way for you to maintain your relationship and maintain your work. Multitasking requires you to have two tasks in the same line of sight that you can accomplish at the same time because there's enough similarities there to make that happen. In college, we call that dual majors. The second principle is about setting flexible but firm boundaries, or like I call it, enforcing non negotiable expectations. The goal isn't the eliminating boundaries. Okay. I kind of want to eliminate boundaries, but when you're dealing with non-negotiable expectations for behavior, you're not shutting people out, but eliminating boundaries altogether, that is a recipe for burnout. Is to eliminate the anxiety of rigid all or nothing rules. Instead of a strict, I must see my friends every Friday, which creates stress when life interferes, you establish a non negotiable principle. I need dedicated quality time with my friend to feel sane. The execution can be flexible. A long phone call one week, a coffee the next. You enforce the principle, not the specific rules. This also means communicating these needs. For example, a non negotiable for your sanity might be one night a week that is protected for yourself, your partner, or your friends. A time that your family understands is sacred. Enforcing these expectations isn't about being demanding, it's about sustainability and managing your own well being so that you have more to give to all of your relationships. Finally, practice the art of the relationship audit. We've talked about this before. On a regular basis, take a quiet moment to ask yourself who in my life is a net source of energy and joy, and which interactions consistently leave me feeling drained. The research on quality over quantity is a direct call to action. It's an instruction to consciously allocate your finite social energy. This doesn't mean ruthless cutting people out, but it might mean shifting your primary investment from a large circle of acquaintances to the few deep supportive friendships and family ties that the data tells us are the cornerstone of a well lived life. It's about moving from a passive state of social overwhelm to become the active arc of your social life. And that is truly nourishing you, being the architect of your own life and navigating all of the ups and downs that you would want to have managed appropriately. That takes patience. Wendy's fries, that takes ketchup. So what does this all leave us? We're taking apart the myth of having it all, showing it to be an unrealistic and stressful goal. We've seen that trying to be a 10 out of 10 in every part of your life at the same time is a recipe for burnout. The research shows us a picture, not a failure, but of fundamental trade offs. The double burden on working moms is real. The happiness penalty of parenthood in unsupported societies is also real. The pressure is real, but the data doesn't leave us in despair. Instead, it points to a more sustainable, realistic, and ultimately happier way of thinking about our lives. It's time to shift from the idea of work life balance to the idea of work life integration. The word balance itself is the problem. It makes you think of a scale with work on one side and life on the other, always fighting each other. It implies that for one side to win, the other has to lose. This way of thinking creates a ton of stress and guilt. We feel guilty when we focus on work over family, and we feel anxious when we're with family but thinking about work. Those people who go to work on their day off, those people who are on call, those people who know that there's an important family event that's supposed to occur, but they're going to go to work anyway to make that extra check. They feel bad about going to work, but they need the money. On the other hand, it is a more if you're looking at a work life integration, it is going to be a more holistic and forgiving model than the work life balance model. The work integration model accepts that work and life aren't separate, wherein nations, uh, hold on, sorry about that, warring nations, where they're always in conflict with one another, but connected parts of one single life. So instead of them being two separate conflicting entities, it is actually one united entity. See, there it was, burnout coming out of me just now. it it understands that what happens in one area will naturally spill over into the other. The same way my fatigue of running that run since about this time yesterday got me on a level of burnout that I ain't been on in a while. Now, this integrated approach isn't about finding a perfect frozen state of calm. Life is messy. Sometimes work will need more of you. Sometimes a family crisis will take over. Sometimes your own health has to be the number one priority. The goal isn't to keep the scales perfectly level at all times, but to be flexible enough to handle these shifts without falling apart. It's about consciously mixing the different parts of your life in a way that actually supports your overall well being. This demands a radical change in our expectations. So we have to give up on being perfect and embrace the reality of adapting. A fulfilling life is not a flawless one. The biggest lesson from all of these researches that we have addressed today is that happiness is tied to the quality of our relationships and the realism of our expectations. It's about making sure our daily choices line up with what we actually value. You have to define what all really means to you on your own terms, not based on someone else's standards or the standards of someone that you saw on Instagram. For some, that might be a huge career and no children. For others, it might be a part time job that allows for more family time. For others, still, it might be a season of intense focus on raising kids, followed by a return to a career later on. The data shows that there's no single right way. The key is to understand that you probably can't have everything you want all at the same time. Life has lessons, and the priorities of a 25-year-old are different from the priorities of a 40-year-old. The integrated life is one that adapts to these changing seasons, letting different things take the lead at different times. It's about letting go of the idea that you have to be a superhero, acing every role every single day. The data gives us a compass, and that compass consistently points away from the frantic chase of achievement and towards the deep, patient work of building meaningful connection with our partners, our children, our friends, and most importantly, with ourselves. So we started by questioning a powerful myth, the idea that you can and should have it all. We've walked through decades of hard data, and a clear picture has emerged. The idolized image of a life with perfect simultaneous success in everything is not just a fantasy, it's a blueprint for stress. The evidence shows that far many especially women. Trying to juggle big careers and family leads not to more happiness, but to a double burden of work and home responsibilities that takes a serious toll on not only the mind, the body, but also the soul. We confronted the parenthood paradox where the strange but true findings that having kids often leads to a drop in day to day happiness and a penalty that's worse in a society like the United States that doesn't support families at all. We saw how this penalty gets even bigger for single parents, highlighting the huge challenge they face. But in the middle of these challenges, the data shows us a clear path forward. It points again and again to the profound and lasting power of our relationships. We learned that a stable, loving marriage is one of the best predictors of long term well being, acting as a powerful shield against life's stressors. We rediscovered the vital and often forgotten importance of friendship as a pillar of a healthy life, a source of joy that becomes even more important as we age. Ultimately, the data backed truth about having it all is a call to completely redefine success. It's a call to abandon the impossible chase for perfection and embrace a more realistic, forgiving, and integrated life. It suggests we shift our focus from quantity to quality, fewer things on the checklist, more meaningful connections. The goal isn't to perfectly balance competing roles, but to blend them into a life that reflects what we truly value. The happiness and the people who find themselves the happiest aren't those who have it all, but those who have what matters. The data doesn't promise an easy life or a perfect one, but it does offer a compass, one that points instantly towards a life rich in love, deep in connection, and grounded in the quiet, powerful truth of realistic expectations. If this deep dive into data has changed how you think about success, happiness, or the pressure of having it all, please share in the comment section what you found that motivated you. But then also share this video with somebody that you think might need to hear this message also. The most important conversations are often the ones that challenge what we think and know. And I genuinely want to know your thoughts on this. What does having what matters looks like to you? Let me know. I make it a point to read every single one of the comments that comes across the platform. And I typically get back to everyone as quickly as possible. I appreciate those who hung out with us and waited the clock out. First, I'm going to start off by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you, ladies, to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. But I do want to mention that, fellas, we're about 73% male driven podcast from the male's perspective. And I give you this information to help you become higher valued men. Just like Michael said, remember to like and subscribe. Look at Michael up in here in the middle of the night. You were supposed to be gone 2 hours ago. I seen him. I seen him. I was like, man, Michael, quiet tonight. He listening from the background. He was too tired to type. But I give this information to you to help you become higher value men because the areas of life that you are valued is not just your finances. While your finances and your resources do play a heavy role in it, the way you interact in your relationships, the way you prioritize your partner, the way you prioritize your family, your network, your friends, That is what defines you more to the magnitude of a man of higher value, because your society, your network isn't just depending on you for resources. They depend on you for your social interaction. Not a lot of us think about that. A great show about family. Oh, I've got two more. Because now that we've talked about how important it is, tomorrow we're going to be talking about how to balance it, how to, uh, especially when you're dealing with, like, remember the girl that came on the show last week, and she was asking about how do you navigate having a partner that you love and care about, and your family and friends disapprove. We're going to be navigating that tomorrow. We're going to cover that whole topic tomorrow, and then Saturday we're going to be covering red flags about this dynamic and what to do about them, how not to get caught up in these traps. It was worth it. I did tell you we were going to be late. We were massively late, but that was an hour and 20 minutes worth of information that actually settled well with me and made me stop and think as I was going over it with you guys. Like, damn, because I actually got a buddy of mine that I haven't stayed in touch with as much as I used to, and the man that came down with shingles and COVID. I'm like, man, this man coming down with a bunch of diseases. I need to start checking in on him and make sure that he don't die before me. Younger than I am, he need a friend. Oh wait, that's me. Got to step up and check in on him more often. You know, these are the things. I don't just talk to you guys about it. I learn about it and then I pass it on to you guys. Or I pass it on to you guys while I learn about it. And then I don't just preach about it. I practice what I preach. I implement in my life what I tell you guys about. And ladies, this isn't just exclusive for the men. Ladies, y'all can take this information and y'all can utilize it to help yourselves become higher value women as well. We should all be able to find things that we don't like in our lives and proactively put effort towards changing it. And we should see going into 2026. So we're in September in like a week and a couple days, and we're walking right into quarter four of the month of the year. We're almost done. And as we get closer to 2026, how many of us can say, besides those of y'all that are following me with the dividend rotation strategy and Michael flipping everybody's estate sale and turning a massive profit, how many people can say that they've done something in 2025 that will make them better in 2026? How many people can say that they stopped doing something in 2025 that was holding them back in 2024 so that they can be more successful in 2026? He said Christmas is next week. You talk about all the next dividends I'm gonna get. Yeah, that's gonna be a few $100 gonna be sliding in here. We gonna be like, woo. So what we have to do is we have to keep trying and we have to keep changing and we have to keep improving. So that's all I've got for you guys for tonight. I want to thank you guys for sticking it out, waiting for me to see what I had in store for you. It was worth it. It was worth the wait. It's not going to be a habit. I literally left from here and was gone from here for about 20 hours. So as soon as I got back, I had to go live on the show. Because if I would have did anything, I would have laid down, went to sleep, and been like, damn, missed the day. So I was like, nope, gotta do it. Gotta do it. But tomorrow we're going to be closer to being on time. I don't have any hurdles that I have to jump through for tomorrow. So outside of making sure that the internet's working and the computer's working, which the routers are on their way, I got the notifications that they were shipped, but UPS doesn't have them yet. So that means that first thing in the morning, because I'm going to be working for the rest of the night, first thing in the morning, I should see UPS in possession of them, and then I should be able to grab a hold of them, and I should have them in my possession hopefully this afternoon. Can't guarantee it, but that's going to be the goal. If it works out that way, hopefully we have faster internet speeds or at least more consistent ones. Now, as it pertains to those browsers crashing, I'm probably just going to have to buy a different computer because in order for me to service this computer, I'm going to have to give my computer to a tech guy who has more experience than I do in getting the bugs out of this one. And that means I will be down a computer until I get this computer back. Or I can buy the exact same one in a 2025 model and then use this one as a backup and just say, fuck it. Either way, I've got to find another way for us to do what we got to do. So, always trying to find ways to improve. And that's one of the reasons why we're trying out the 16 by 9 because I'm trying to see if this will improve the ability to generate the kind of revenue that covers the cost of the platform because the platform's not cheap. But we'll see. We'll see. I'll let you guys know. Tip it as long as it's running the way it's running and things are doing well. I should be able to tell you guys within 30 to 45 days that yeah, it is doing better. And if it is doing better, then we'll probably see a larger group of individuals in here live in the comment section. And then we're going to be bringing back some of our old heads up in here. We're gonna have our legends on top of our newbies, and we're gonna be able to have some intellectual conversations about everything that changes the way we make, save, and invest money and social interaction. Passing knowledge around, good old boys club. We're going to be teaching the next generation all the stuff that we learned from the last generation, and we're gonna have a network of probably some of the greatest knowledge that anybody's ever touched on. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you guys take a step out because yeah, it is really late. And thank you guys one more time for coming to this and that. Special shout out to Michael. Special shout out to Mixed Martial Arts, Bayside, Mr. Satellite, Carl, Broughton, Reese Martinez. I really appreciate you guys. Danny, Stephen, Steven from Twitch and Twitter. Well, Steven from Twitter and the other Steven from Twitch. I really appreciate you guys for coming to the show. My name is Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. I will see you guys tomorrow night.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command.